Whenever I speak to software engineers about how they would like to level up and evolve their career, I often get the answer that they want to learn a certain technology stack, or they want to learn a new tool, or they want to explore that cloud provider, or maybe they want to get a bunch of new certificates. However, very few of them actually mention their need and their willingness to go through and undergo through new experiences. New experiences, in my opinion, is how you would evolve as a software engineer, and building up these experiences is gonna create new opportunities for you as you evolve through your career, and it's gonna help you also get promoted faster, increase your revenue, and it will make you a very or highly sought after software engineer. So let's explore the 10 different experiences that, in my opinion, every software engineer, if they have the chance to do so, they should explore. Experience number 1, building a greenfield versus working in a brownfield project. Greenfield projects mean that you are starting the whole project from scratch. You are laying the foundation for how everybody should be working and what are the technologies, what are the tools, and how everybody should be evolving this particular project. You are at the forefront, you are at the start, you are the starting point, and whatever decisions you make at this point, that's gonna dictate how this entire project is gonna evolve. It's also gonna determine its potential future success or failure. Brownfield projects, on the other hand, is when you join an existing project. You continue evolving it. Some of the concrete and fundamental decisions have been made. You don't really have a choice in how you change a lot of things moving forward. So you try to your best to continue the evolution of the project in the direction that has already been set. And also, in my opinion, this is a fundamental experience that every software engineer should have, because these two types of projects are completely different, and your behavior and the skills you're going to be using in these two types of projects is going to be fundamentally different. Experience number 2, rewriting an entire piece of software. Now, rewrites are often frowned upon. A lot of people in the industry, complain about rewrites. Every time a software engineer comes in and says they want to rewrite something, all they're gonna get are, blank stares, because rewrites are very expensive, they're costly, they take a lot of time. Sometimes it's better to deal with the beast that its behavior versus dealing with a whole new beast that you don't know how it's gonna behave, and there's a lot of unpredictability and uncertainty. So any problem you think you might solve with a rewrite might turn out to be solvable, but you're gonna get a whole new array of new problems along the line that you need to train and practice and deal with. Number 3, working on legacy systems. A lot of engineers have worked on more or less modern systems, but very few have worked on extremely old, archaic legacy software, and that is also an experience in and all by itself, because at that level, you don't really have a lot of choice for how you deal with problems that you see. You don't have a lot of choice when you want to build new features. If you are building new features, it's not a lot of fun dealing with legacy software, but it's also going to teach you a lot about how you can do more with less. It's going to teach you a lot about how you can refactor certain areas wherever you can. And it's going to teach you a lot about the boundaries of different systems and the importance of institutional knowledge. A lot of these legacy systems don't have any documentation, and a lot of the knowledge is concentrated into the minds of very few individuals who have been dealing with these systems for a very, very long time. So building the skill to extract information from the heads of these people is very, very important, and you can obviously do that in many different ways, but when working with legacy systems, that's one of the things you're going to be able to pick up on and learn from. Number 4, working on microservices or service-oriented architectures versus a monolith. Obviously, these are two different architectural patterns, and there's a lot of debates often about which one is better, which one is worse. That's not the point here. If you get the chance to work on either of them, and if you get the chance to work on both, not necessarily at the same time, this is gonna be a great experience for you to have, because you're gonna be able to see for yourself firsthand what are the benefits of working with one versus the cons of working with the other, and also to be able to understand the trade-offs that were made whenever you adopt either one of these architectural patterns. In my opinion, there's no right or wrong with this, and it's all about the trade-offs that you're going to be making, and what better way to understand these trade-offs except working with these two systems. And that's going to, in my opinion, render all of these debates that happen online often quite meaningless, because you will understand that the choice is way more nuanced than what some people try to proclaim online. Number 5, working on-prem versus the cloud. A lot of previous software engineers have built software that is deployed and it runs in enterprises in on-prem or on-premise data centers. A lot of these systems are even isolated from, internet access. It's going to teach you a lot about networking. It's going to teach you a lot about infrastructure design. It's going to teach you a lot about how, closed and air-gapped a lot of these data centers are. And it's going to teach you a lot about how you can work more effectively, because you're not going to be able to just, zip something and just push it online and work from home whenever you want. Obviously, there are ways using VPNs and whatnot, but we're not going to get into that. All I'm trying to say is building on-prem is a whole different experience than building for the cloud. And you need to have some aspect of that experience, because you can never guarantee that in your entire career, you're only going to work in products that are deployed to the cloud. Which brings us to experience number 6, regulated versus non-regulated environments. If you've ever worked at a bank, fintech, hospital, insurance, any of these industries that are, sort of regulated by governments, you will realize that things are much more difficult. It's very hard to move things around. It's very difficult to get access to certain things. It's much less easy to be able to push changes very frequently. There's a lot of process around every change that you need to make. And even though that's really not necessarily fun for us software engineers, but I do still think it's a great experience to have, because it's going to give you a lot of empathy and understanding for the weight and the importance of how these industries operate and behave. In regulated industries, when you break things, you are often jeopardizing or impacting human lives. And understanding this will give your experience as a software engineer a whole new dimension, and it's gonna bring the ethicality into into your mind and into your thinking. That is something that, in my opinion, is very much lacking in our industry. And I'm not saying that these ethical considerations are only apparent in regulated industries, but they are more outspoken because, for obvious reasons, legal and whatnot. Number 7, working in service-based companies, basically companies that offer services to others, versus working in a product-based company. When you are, outsourced to a certain company, when you are joining as a consultant software engineer, you're basically joining in a previously established team. You are trying to contribute as much as you can. You're trying to assimilate how this company that you just joined as a consultant works. You are trying to write code, but at the same time, you're not really responsible for maintaining that code on the long run. And at some point in time, you're going to be handing off that piece of code to some other team that are going to maintain it on the long run. And that might not necessarily be ideal, because whatever decision you make is going to have long-term impact that you yourself are not going to deal with. And in my opinion, working in service companies is important, and working in product companies is equally important, so that you can develop this understanding of both sides of the coin. And it's not really a dichotomy between service and product, but in my opinion, these are on the two extremes. So product companies on one end, service companies on the other, in terms of how they work. In product companies, you actually own each feature and each line of code you introduce for very long periods of time. So you have to be extremely careful about how you design certain things, what you introduce, and you also have to be very careful about the consistency of these features, the consistency of the feature you're trying to introduce in the grand scheme of things and in the context of the entire product. Number 8, startups versus larger corporations. Obviously, these are two distinct beasts. One moves extremely fast. It's sort of a culture of building things and then asking for permission. While on the other hand, when you are working in a corporation, a lot of people are sort of walking on eggshells quite often. Things move much more slowly. Decision-making takes a lot of time. There's a lot of meetings that are being had. And I'm not saying that startups always operate very fast. There are just hardly behaving or operating startups, obviously. But I'm just saying in general, startups are way faster just by the simple fact that the number of people who are making decisions and they are building is way, way, way smaller than larger corporations. And in my opinion, building experience in these two extremes is very, very important. And it's going to give you a lot of great insights. You can watch my other videos about working in startups, hyper-growth companies, and corporations. They are on my YouTube channel. Number 9, working on building a software as a service company or working in a software as a service company versus shipping software that doesn't get deployed online. A lot of software engineers work on building firmware for hardware, for example. A lot of software engineers ship software that gets deployed on-prem. A lot of software engineers ship software that requires the physical movement of an individual to go and upgrade a certain piece of software somewhere. This software is not necessarily released as frequently as SaaS products. The concept of continuous deployment just simply does not exist because there's no fixed target of deployment. Whenever this product is sold, it is often sold with a set of services or service contract that requires the company building or designing the software to go and make sure that it is operating as intended in the customer's location. So these systems are difficult to maintain because when you introduce a bug, it's not as easily fixable as, just releasing a fix online as with SaaS companies. And building experience in these two extremes is also, in my opinion, great because it gives you a lot of insights about how either of these companies works and some of the trade-offs and nuances of working in both places. I'm not saying either one is better or worse than the other. Obviously, when things are much more difficult and when we have more constraints on our work as software engineers, it becomes a little bit less fun and a bit more tedious. However, I still believe that these are great experiences to have. Last but not least, working in management versus working as an individual contributor. I think a lot of software engineers make the mistake that if they, enter the management track, that they're stuck in it forever. And that's not true at all. In my opinion, it's very important that at some point in your career, and especially, as you cross the senior threshold, that you dabble with management of people, that you go and do a little bit of, people management, because it's going to give you a lot of understanding and a lot of empathy with the folks that you thought were on the other side. You're going to understand why the decisions are being made. You're going to contribute to a lot of decision making. You're going to understand the constraints and difficulty of dealing with human beings as opposed to just dealing with the machines and making the tech part work. And I've personally done management of people before. I enjoy the aspect of working with people and helping them evolve, but I don't necessarily enjoy all of the other responsibilities that come with it. And often I have made the decision to go back and work as an individual contributor, knowing full well that I'm going to be sacrificing a lot of the decision-making power and a lot of, the ability to influence the direction of certain things. Obviously, I can still do that as a highly senior individual contributor, but it's not necessarily the same. I have to force myself sometimes into decision-making rooms as opposed to de facto being part of them. And in my opinion, building experience in the two and deciding what you want to do on the long run is very, very important. And this is the last one. So, in your opinion, what are some of the experiences that I have not mentioned and are important to go through as a software engineer? Drop them in the comments. I would love to hear from you, and I will catch you next time.